19th October, 2199. Mr. Black was a quiet guy in our neighborhood. Never complained about anything and generally kept to himself. The most people knew about the human was that he was a police officer that served the city for 5 whole decades before retiring. Now, he spent his evenings on his front porch with a single glass of scotch in his hand and his dog at his side. He wasn't a drinker, and when I asked him once why he was drinking only a single glass of scotch per evening, he smiled calmly and told me, "This is the real stuff. None of that synthesized machine bullshit. Original 40-year aged whiskey from Scotland. 120 years old if we count the time in my and my father's house. If I keep it down to 1 glass per day, I can enjoy this fine taste until my 100th birthday. What I have are 3 of the last 150 bottles ever produced by that company." He then showed me the etched logo on the glass. It read, ESTD 1819, Brora, with a wildcat above the writing. Also, he didn't take kindly to it when I offered to replicate the exact structure of the drink with my magic. He called it an insult to the hard work of the producer of such a fine taste. That was the first time I got scolded by him. After that, he kept to himself again. He was not unfriendly, just quiet. I think he had seen enough action in his days, that he didn't need nor wanted to stir up more. If you came to talk to him, he was like a nice grandpa. Not exactly doting, but not far off either. He just never initiated the contact. Maybe he didn't want to seem weird after the neighborhood slowly got fewer and fewer humans as the city enveloped us. In the human's stead came the races from my world. Elves, dwarves, and most prominently, orcs. In fact, most of the elves quickly left after initially buying the homes. The cul-de-sac was a far cry from the peace and quiet it once had, and they preferred nature over the city life in the first place. The quiet suburban cul-de-sac was slowly surrounded by a highway on one side, and a new megastore on the other side. Mr. Black's only comment to that was, "Well, it's livelier now, but at least now I can walk to get my groceries." The evening everything went down, I was awoken by the sound of a door quietly opening inside my home. Thank the gods I forgot to oil those hinges. I was living alone at the time, barely 2 years after moving out from my parents a street down. I was proud of my house and honoured to live right next to such a highly decorated civil servant like Mr. Black. He spoiled me a bit in my childhood, but that just made me appreciate him even more. He was the grandpa I never had. So I did the thing he told me to do when I moved out from my parents, and used a flashlight to strobe into his windows from my bedroom. Mr. Black told me that I was basically still a child to him, despite us being nearly the same age, and that a young elven lady as myself, he called me a lady, shouldn't live alone at merely 82 years old. I think he told me once that in human years I would be barely 17 or something. Humans live such short lives. Anyway, Mr. Black told me to strobe into his lower left window when I need his help, because he had trouble sleeping in his age, so he was usually awake until the wee hours of the morning, and it took him barely 10 seconds to pull one blind to the side enough so he could see me. His old weathered face was serious, knowing I wouldn't disturb him without good cause. He just glanced at me before motioning to me to get down and hide after looking over the mesh fence. I didn't know what he saw, but it was definitely not good. So I did as he motioned and opened my closet. It took barely 2 minutes before I heard my bedroom door open, and I heard 3 pairs of footsteps enter my room, while hearing the door downstairs screech again. Far too quiet for humans to pick it up, but I had hoped that that was Mr. Black, and not another intruder. I held my breath and closed my eyes, hoping that they didn't come to the idea to check the closet for me, as they were clearly not mere burglars. Elves, especially young ones, could fetch a high price after being domesticated with spice torture and a binding seal on their bodies. I still don't get how humans can eat all that overspiced food. Mr. Black explained to me once that we owls were weird to them as well, that our senses were roughly 20 times more sensitive than that of an average human, and that he almost permanently blinded an elf with a careless gesture of his flashlight when he was still a rookie in the force and didn't know any better. I think I am still too traumatized to accurately know what was going on exactly after I heard someone sprint up the stairs and shout. The only real thing I remember was his blood on my hands when it finally grew quiet and I dared to peek out of the closet. Mr. Black was half sitting, half lying against the wall, wheezing heavily and with a mixture of green, black and red blood all over him. Around him were the corpses of an orc, a goblin and, to my absolute horror, then and now, an elf. All 4 bodies in my bedroom had the telltale signs of militaristic battle magic all over them, and Mr. Black had a small government-issued wand in his limp hand. I saw black lines crawl up his face, and heard his wheezing become heavier shortly afterwards. In the movies, there were always last words, a heroic stand or a touching moment when a hero died. But this couldn't be farther from the truth. There was only the increasingly strained wheezing of a dying old man 2 days before his 100th birthday, as the curse took over him and slowly, painfully suffocated him. There wasn't even anything I could do to help him. This type of curse was advanced 12th circle magic, reserved for law enforcement and militaries. Even if I knew something that could stop it, the casting alone would take longer than Mr. Black had left to live. Destroying is way easier and faster than building or healing. And even if I could do all of that, I was still only barely knowledgeable enough to heal with 3rd circle magic. I was told not even the tactical wizard, as was Mr. Black's nickname in the police force at his time of service, could have saved him at that time. Sadly, that didn't take away much of the guilt. 31st October, 2199. Today was the funeral for one Sergeant Elias Justin Black, retired member of the Magic Division of the Tripoli Police. At his funeral, I met many of his colleagues, and even members of an organization called Sergeant Black's Children. It's kind of a self-help group of the people Mr. Black helped or rescued from various predicaments. They offered me help, and I accepted. I am still not over his death. He saved me from an eternity of slavery. Me, a spoiled brat that found herself too cool to still live with her parents at the ripe old age of 82. What a joke. Rest in peace, Mr. Black.